Welcome to the launch sequence.
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Cruickshanks. I'm with Atlas, and we're here to talk about pricing and billing, everything related with monetization. We're the creators of Vibe Pricing, as seen on Product Hunt. And with me today, we have Shikhar Mishra. He is the CEO and co-founder of EGI, the makers of Alfred. Hi, Shikhar. Welcome. Can you tell me a bit about yourself, your background, and why you care about pricing?
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. And thank you for inviting me to talk about pricing. So a little bit about myself. I most recently have co-founded EGI, and we are building enterprise productivity, artificial intelligence. And one of the recent flagship products that we have launched is Alfred. It's an agent for product managers. Before that, I was VP of engineering at Main Street, where we were doing tax credits automation. And prior to that, I was VP of engineering at a company called Scalable, where we were doing e-commerce automations.
Yeah, I think I got this hoodie made one off through something that Scalable does, right? It's pretty cool
That might have
e-commerce.
been true. No, that might have been true. I think I remember like we were at one point, we were one of the biggest to do this type of work and enablement. So, and a lot of people were using, a lot of companies were using us behind the scenes. So
Yeah,
there's a high
it's very
probability.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me exactly as a VP of engineering, basically what CTOs would care about at their startups. What is it? What is the sneaky part about pricing that you've had to deal
Yeah.
with, and
Right.
why it matters to you?
Yeah. So actually, there are a couple of things I learned about pricing is pricing is very much part of the growth strategy. And I consider, as I've seen startups grow from early stages to growth stages, pricing becomes very much part of the product and growth design. And from an engineering point of view, oftentimes during the MVP phase or the initial launch phase, pricing is a secondary concern. We all built like a basic pricing table tied to some type of product feature table. And as product grows, some features get thrown out of the window, new features get added, and those like relational database tables become increasingly complex to constantly upkeep. And that has a friction over a period of time on the product growth and product design. And those are some of the lessons that, as I went through like multiple growth stage startups, I felt like, there has to be a way to do it better. There has to be a way where, similar to putting in Stitch or Clerk for authentication, there has to be a platform where we could just, okay, drop in and now that's your pricing. So it's more like, feature as a SaaS. And I'm a big believer of feature as a SaaS, and pricing is something that is a basic expectation for every product. And so why not there's a SaaS for that, like a Eng tooling or an SDK that we can install, and it just grows as our product grows and our customers grow.
Did you ever feel like this pricing work that engineering became responsible for? What was your biggest frustration with that?
Yeah, so I think there were multiple frustrations. So me being an engineer, let's first talk about technology debt. It's a big thing for us, and it especially impacts us in areas that are not customer facing, because the growth features, a new front end, a new kind of conversion funnel, that mostly gets the design love and care. And the same goes with engineering, right? So we all kind of build a very basic version of pricing, but as the product goes, that becomes the pricing is often one of the biggest technology debt areas in every engineering organization. And that's definitely what I've seen. So there's one like technology debt aspect of it. And that kind of really impacts the engineering team too, because when we're planning for new features, we are not considering this technology debt. So now it becomes kind of responsibility for engineering leader like myself to align my stakeholders that we really cannot launch it because our pricing is not ready to accommodate this type of new pricing model.
No.
Yeah, I know. So it's a huge challenge. And let's say we want to, which is kind of an impact on the growth, and rightly so. Growth teams often would love to try out various pricing growth strategies, maybe giving off free credits, giving off coupons, etc. And those are like non-trivial technical implementations because you can't do it wrong, right? Um,
Yeah.
it's a transactional data set and financial data set. So you have to make sure every transaction is getting caught and applied. So in engineering term, this has to be a very highly consistent data set. And the tolerance for failure is very low. So we have to be very mindful about testing it thoroughly. So, this money movement and exchange of money through pricing and payment is always, I guess, highly, highly reliable system. So that's one, right? So I think that starts impacting the growth. And oftentimes I came across growth strategies that either were partially implemented or delayed because the pricing technology wasn't ready to scale to try out this new mechanism, right? Or oftentimes marketing teams and growth teams would go ahead and sell something knowing that we are not ready to accommodate that into pricing. But
Yeah.
both are suboptimal, right? Both are suboptimal. So I think the second impact outside of technology that I would say is growth. The third, being an executive, I feel like stakeholder management is also one of the big part of the value we bring to the organizations. And like a lot of the challenging stakeholder management situations I ran into were around pricing. And rightly so, I had empathy for my stakeholders. I knew where they were coming from. And frankly, as an executive who's responsible for business growth, I would ask the same thing that they're asking from me to do, which is to change pricing on the fly, run pricing experiments, all of that stuff. But I knew also as an engineer that my technology architecture is not ready. So I had a dual job of empathizing with them and aligning with their decisions, saying, yes, that's my decision too, but yet saying I cannot deliver because the pricing is not ready. So, which definitely made this whole situation very challenging.
Yeah. What did you do in order to balance the two?
Yeah,
Or were you able to do anything? Maybe you
right.
couldn't. Yeah.
Great question. The frank answer is no, it's trade-offs, right? Like we would present trade-offs among ourselves to our executive team. And like all I could do is be transparent, right? It's like, look, here's where we stand. Here's the limits of infrastructure. We can try this experiment. That's going to be quick. That experiment might be too complex. If we do that, we'll have to re-architect it or, give us 3 months. And 3 months in growth is way too long. It's too long of a timeline, I
Yeah.
guess. So
Yeah.
yeah, so no, to answer your question, no good answers. Very situationally, we made decision collectively as an executive team where I was able to paint the picture of reality and our limitations. But, I always wonder if there's a way for us to not have that situation. If there's a way similar to running marketing experiments, we could run pricing experiments on the fly without engineering having to get involved.
Yeah. One of the things we say at Atlas is like, let your engineers work on the product, let us handle the billing. Like how is that? I'm not an engineer, so I don't know. It's hearsay for me. I
Yeah.
can imagine, like, how was it when you would ask your engineers, "Hey, can you work on this pricing project?" How'd they react?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you're exactly right. Pricing, like when we build products, we're building products for our customers, so there's jobs to be done. And pricing is like when we do the job, hopefully sufficiently well, there's some economic exchange. Like that's where pricing comes in, right? Well, needless to say, if most of, or I guess 99% of the products that get built in B2B SaaS or even B2C SaaS are not pricing products. They are solving for some customer job to be done that is not pricing. And that's where the unique differentiation is, right? And the engineering team gets it, right? They understand what are the most strategic features, what are the growth features, what are the features that have the largest impact on the customers' jobs to be done, and pricing oftentimes is not, right? If you're building, say, a CRM tool that is being built to make the sales team's workflow super efficient, pricing is not their jobs to be done. Like pricing is something else. So I think team gets it. Like team gets that pricing is an important part, but team also gets, engineers also get that pricing has to be right. Like it's not a system that, if you have 100 pricing events, even if you miss like three pricing events, eventually it's going to be cool. No, it's not. Like it has to be a highly consistent data set. So understand the technical complexity of building it, but they also oftentimes never have that luxury of time
Yeah.
to do it right. And
Yeah.
especially when it constantly evolves. So it's one of the most challenging aspects of actually engineering. I mean, it's really situational. I mean, everybody gets it, even CEOs gets it, but it is very situational. So on the engineering side, it's very challenging.
Yeah. What was I'm curious, like, what was the, I don't know if you inherited pricing from another team, like from like, joining a company, but did you have a moment when you just said, like, this is a really bad situation, like we dug ourselves into a
Oh,
hole by owning. Was there one
yeah.
moment?
It's a great point. And multiple times, especially for somebody like me, where majority of my career has been in startups and doing engineering, especially growth engineering or growth stage, doing engineering, leading engineering in growth stage startups. Literally pricing is almost like doing a forensic assessment about business strategy because everybody pivots, all startups pivot, all product directions fully so evolve as the company grows. And you could literally look at the pricing table and look at an entire history of product evolution. So it's one of the most challenging pieces of code to work on. I was just mentioning in the earlier part of this conversation, initially it's a secondary concern. Generally, engineers start with building, if they're using a relational database, they are going to create a pricing table. They're going to link it with a customer table. Then they're going to link it with some type of user table. And then they're going to link it with some type of product features table. And then that's going to get linked to some type of discounts table or coupons table. Now you see
Goodness.
this whole relationship is already getting messy for me to describe,
This is great because I
right?
didn't even realize how many tables there would be.
Yeah. And this is not the end of it. Like you see like credits, oftentimes you have to make sure your customers are given credits or they are handled. So it's really one of the most complex systems to design, honestly. And it's not a unique value proposition of the product. So yeah, I mean, I would consider it very much similar to authentication in this day and age. Authentication is a very complex problem to solve. It has to be secure. You have to go through a lot of compliances in order to make sure your system is secure. And it's not a unique selling proposition for most products. So rightfully so, people use a third-party SDK or a B2B SaaS solution to build the authentication. I feel like pricing is very much so.
What's the breaking point when you're a startup? You only have a few customers, and like a lot of people can just build it. It's really easy. They could track it with an Excel spreadsheet, whatnot. But when do you like make that realization? Oh no, I'm in over my head with pricing.
Yeah. And in my experience, is usually when the product market fit happens, is really when you now need to scale your growth and then you want to experiment with different growth strategies as well to kind of rapidly capture that market. And I think that's really where this pain becomes paramount. The challenge is that by that time, pricing is already being used, like the homegrown solution is being used enough that there's a friction to rip it out and drop in a new solution. That's why I feel like oftentimes companies wait way too long, right, for some internal friction to cross a certain threshold, where some executives are not happy that, the revenue is not meeting the forecast or our ability to do, our sales team is not happy that we're not being able to apply the pricing commitments that we gave to the customers. Our customer success team starts feeling churn because oftentimes they're too confused about, you know, customers not being able to understand pricing and our ability to, not adapt the pricing based on customers' need and all that stuff. But it's usually, I feel like one whole cycle after product market fit where there is some pain that's realized by multiple executives and their respective organizations that affecting either the acquisition or churn or revenue recognition usually, right? These are the areas that really start becoming hotspot. And that's when I think companies look for a third party pricing as a SaaS solution.
So you've seen pricing break at the growth stage. So what made you decide Atlas was worth the investment this early at your new startup?
Right. For multiple reasons, I think one is like separation of concerns. Like I said, pricing is not our USP. What other use is, I mean, we're solving a very different jobs for the customers. So we wanted to be hyper focused as a team on, let's just focus our energies on what matters most for our customers. Second, in early stages, we know that the pricing is going to, we're building AI agents, and especially with AI agents, the industry as a whole is learning pricing together. So there are no predefined playbooks. And we wanted that flexibility to learn with our customers and with the industry and to be ready to try out different strategies. And number three, I feel like it's just speed. Like I'm a big believer of, being data driven, right? And one of the kind of core tenets of being data driven is you get the data fast, right? So I always want to be in a stage where I want flexibility of coming up with pricing that aligns with customers whose jobs to be done. And for example, one of our agent is a product management agent, you know, and product management is such a wide array of responsibilities, right? And in every culture, in every company, in every product team, product managers play a wide variety of roles, right? Some they're very growth oriented, and some they're very technical. And depending upon the responsibilities they're playing, their jobs to be done changes quite, right? So we didn't want them to pay for the jobs to be done that's not relevant to their product organization. So that was one other area where we felt we need to be able to adapt our pricing to what is most relevant for our customers. So and with speed, so instead of waiting for like a one sprint, it should be something that our non-technical folks could just go into a system and say, okay, well, for this customer, this particular jobs to be done matter the most. Okay, let's adapt their pricing on the fly to align with it. Let me answer it differently. I think the way I see it is I was able to free up the capacity for my team by not doing it, right? And I definitely think that the way I answer that question is not like the short-term efficiency benefits or like the bandwidth benefits, but really setting ourselves up for growth. It's like choosing the right infrastructure. Like, are you going to get a one CPU machine, or are you going to get a CPU machine that scales from the, 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 100,000? So to me, it was like a decision like that. Like now it chose the right infrastructure to scale. So it's more like the way I evaluated Atlas is more like, future back versus present forward. So that was kind of my main decision to go with Atlas on a uh, pricing as a SaaS vendor.
What pricing capabilities do you have now on day one that would have taken months to build?
Yeah. So number one, we have a pricing page. And we don't have.
That would not have taken
Yeah,
months to
that's
build.
true.
Let's be
That's true.
honest.
That is true. And I guess what we have is an ability to change it on the fly,
Mhm.
right? Which is something that I have not had before. I mean, we are all engineers here, so we could easily spin off one, but still, like each time you add a piece of code in your existing code base, you have to run the tests. You have to make sure it kind of, works with the whole, there's no ripple effects and all of that. So I think day one, or my go-to-market teams have infinite control on adapting pricing to customers. And I think that is something that I've never had that luxury before, right? Where I have to make customers meet to my pricing model versus adapt my pricing model to a particular customer on the fly. So to me, this is almost like a holy grail. Like pricing will meet where customers find it most relevant versus me trying to convince customer that this is the price and that makes more sense.
Wow. Yeah, that's really that is really like poignant, like I think, because of how stiff, I guess, or inflexible your pricing is. your sales teams have to work a little bit harder. They can't tell them, oh, technically we can't do this. Customers don't care about any technical like difficulties or anything. They just want their pricing. But now you don't have to make, as you make these discoveries with your customers, like how do they expect to pay for value? You can quickly adapt to what their expectations are and how they value your product, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And also, second thing I feel extremely important is now we'll never have to have a pricing conversation within the team, engineering team. Like any new feature we launch would automatically get picked up by Atlas's pricing engine. It will be available for me to go and add it to an existing pricing tier or create a new pricing tier around it, or, and even like the third is just be able to experiment with different pricing tiers on the fly.
Mhm.
And that's extremely powerful, especially in this early days of our venture where pricing is going to evolve, but we don't know how quickly. And I could create like 10 pricing pages on the fly
Yeah.
and test out which one are the ones that are more resonating.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like with like I know we've talked about some of your pricing models, like do you do credit drawdown? Are
Right.
you doing it by results? Like a lot of it keeps changing in the AI
Right.
industry. So how do we keep up? Like, it's no longer about seats, right?
Right.
Like seats is so outdated. But, but how else are you gonna get, ARR like that investors want to see, right? All of that. So, okay, we'll wrap it up with some advice for CTOs from you. Okay. So if a CTO said, I'll just start simple and scale later, what would you tell them?
I would say do that. Start simple,
Yeah.
but but truly, truly start simple by
Huh.
not building pricing at all. Just use a product like Atlas. That is really the simplest thing. To not have a pricing table in your schema is extremely, extremely, I guess, lightweight. It feels lightweight because all of a sudden you're seeing a bunch of, like I was telling, like 5 tables from your relational data model not being present, and that's extremely powerful. So I would say, yeah, do that, like what Laura said, but truly do that, right? Truly, truly don't even write a single line of code for pricing. Just go with a company like Atlas, and they truly are built for engineers, by engineers, really. If engineers were to build like a pricing technology, and I feel
That's
like
nice.
their SDK is really like you just drop in and it does the work.
Oh, thank you. Do you want to talk more about your experience when you like installed the SDK?
Oh, super simple. It was like literally we set up the whole pricing in like 10 minutes, honestly.
10
Install the
minutes? I
SDK.
heard 30 minutes, but I guess the call was 30 minutes and
The call
everything else was
studies,
just
right?
like 10 minutes, huh?
Like 15
Yeah.
minutes tops, like 15 minutes for introduction. And we also spent some time. The pricing setup was, I believe, like if we had timed, it was 15 minutes. And then we spent some time, just general orientation about the platform and all of that fun stuff, like in future, what we might want to be able to use. I guess some orientation of if you need something, this is where we go and get it, type of orientation.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Did you feel when you installed the SDK and saw how everything worked, did like did your worlds just, I don't know, I'm putting words in your mouth,
Magic.
but like, did it just like unblock you or did it give you ideas, like fresh ideas?
No, it was definitely magical. Like we just plugged in, I believe, a cursor agent or windsurf. I don't exactly, I didn't do it, but one of the engineers in my team did it and it was done. Like we took the prompt that Atlas recommended, gave it to the agent, ran it, and it was done really.
That's so great. What would you tell a technical co-founder who's hesitant about adding another vendor like Atlas? What would you say to them?
Honest with you, I think, I mean, at least technical founders that I come across are not per se hesitant on adding another vendor. They just want tooling that is built for engineers,
Oh,
right? So I
okay.
think that's their primary hesitation, right? When oftentimes they come across a solution that is not built for engineers. It's like, okay, now I have to build an integration, now I have to call their APIs. read the documentation. But I feel like that's where the last mile friction, and that's what I was saying, Atlas is really like if engineers want to build pricing for other engineers, it's that simple. It's like SDK, you copy paste the prompt, boom, it installs it, and you're done. So I feel this is very much in alignment with what technical co-founders, CTOs, etc. look for. I mean, like for our kind of use case, and I talked to a lot of technical co-founders, and everybody's using, you know, features as a SaaS. I call them capabilities as a service, but it has to be built in a way that integrates in their technology ecosystem. It has SDK for the programming languages they're using. It can fit into their product workflows. So I think that's kind of one of the main reasons technical founders are a little hesitant about integrating a SaaS. But I feel like Atlas has done a very good job there.
Thanks. Thanks so much. I just really appreciate all the time you took to speak with me and reassure other CTO founders what it's like to work with us. But yeah, thanks. And if anybody wants to check out what Shikhar is building, go to Alfred. I found out the SH was like an inside joke for developers, which I didn't understand. I had to ask my CTO about it. But yeah, alfred.sh. Check out what Alfred does. I thought it was an amazing product. It's how me and Shakar met. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye, Solara. Cheers.